Good morning. We welcome you, your family, and your friends to this broadcast from Unity Church of Bellingham, also known as Unity Spiritual Center. We honor the universal truth in all religions and respect each individual's right to choose their spiritual path. We want you to know that whoever you are and wherever you might be on your path, you are always welcomed here. My name is Jane McLean, and I am your platform assistant today. Our guest speaker today is Reverend Sandra Soley, and our special music is provided by Quiet Fire. Let's get centered for just a moment before we say our 5 principles together. Take a deep breath in. And then let it out. God is good and present in all things. The holiness of God is my own true nature. I am creating my experiences by how I think. My thinking is guided by my daily affirmative prayers and affirmative actions. I follow and am sustained by these values in every way, every day. And so it is. Our daily word for today is forgive. In the peace of prayer, I release all unforgiveness. If I hold on to feelings of hurt, betrayal, or anger, in response to another person's words or actions, I block the flow of divine love and peace in my life. Likewise, holding on to guilt, shame, or embarrassment that may arise when I have hurt another person also keeps me from experiencing divine love and peace. Forgiveness removes all barriers, all obstacles, and anything that may be disrupting my experience of the divine presence. In order to forgive myself or another person, I need not justify or approve behavior that is unwelcome. I need only to become willing to forgive. In the peace of prayer, I release all unforgiveness. I feel the healing power of divine love as it dissolves all barriers, all illusion of separation. I forgive, and I am healed. From Matthew chapter 6, verse 12. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And now let's welcome Reverend Sandra Soley.
Good morning, everyone. I am so grateful you've decided to join us here at Unity Spiritual Center in Bellingham. And the reason for that is because what that tells me is that in some way you are a seeker of spiritual wisdom. You might not have thought of yourself as that, but I hope you open to that this morning, because it is in that seeking for spiritual wisdom that we begin to change and transform our lives in ways that not only make a difference to us, but also reach out and enrich the world and make a difference. And the reason that we know that and realize it is that because when we seek spiritual wisdom, we change our consciousness. And our very energy, our very vibe changes. And when that energy changes and we're at a new level of energy, that moves out into the world. And we become a part of creating the change that we want to have in our world. Something else that I know about you, because it's true about me and our whole world, is that right now, because of the pandemic, you are living, I am, we all are, we're living in challenging times. And those of us here in the United States are in the midst of not only the challenges of the pandemic, but changes in our government, and the fact that it is now time for our Thanksgiving celebrations. And so many of us are used to traveling and connecting with family or having big gatherings of friends and family, and we're not able to do that this year. We've all been asked to back off and take care of each other by staying in our little small pods or groups of family. Those of us that live by ourselves may even find ourselves spending Thanksgiving alone. And that's something that can feel very challenging. And so what I want us to talk about today are a couple of things that can help all of us to be able to deal with challenging times. And what we're going to be doing is exploring some spiritual teachings that really can make a difference because they're about the practical application of what we're learning. Because the truth of it is, no matter how much spiritual wisdom we might learn about, it isn't until we use that unity principle that says we have to apply it in our lives. We have to be willing to take the action to apply those spiritual teachings in our lives for us to really incorporate them, for them to become a part of who we are. It doesn't make any difference how much I know if I'm not living it. And it doesn't make a difference for you or for your world if you're not living the spiritual understanding that you have. And truly, when we're involved with the consciousness that unity is all about, one of the things we hold is that we are truth students. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore started out with that consciousness of having challenges in their lives and taking spiritual principles and putting them into action. And for both of them, what they realized, Myrtle in terms of her health improving, and Charles in terms of feeling truly and knowing he was connected to the divine presence, their work, their constant work, was about applying the things that they were learning in their lives, and then from that experience, growing in spiritual understanding and growing in spiritual understanding until eventually our whole unity movement evolved. So let's start. Let's get to work. What are we going to work on today to help us have some spiritual truths to help us through Thanksgiving, help us through probably the Christmas season? Because as the scientists are telling us, it's going to be a while before we have the support that we need through vaccines to begin to really handle this. So we're all asked to wear a mask, to have some social distancing. You're not able to come and be here in the spiritual community in person, but you're able to connect with us via videos. Because why? Because we are connected, and we want to stay in that consciousness of doing our work and staying connected in community. So, what are these two practices that are divine in nature? Well, what we're going to talk about, and it sort of tickled me to think about it, is that the very word Thanksgiving gives us two very powerful practices. The first practice is thanks, and the second practice is giving. So how do we do that from a spiritual perspective? One of the people who was a true teacher of that and a master teacher goes way back. It was Meister Eckhart. And he said, if the only prayer you ever said your entire life is thank you, that it's enough. A spiritual practice. And so many things happen in your life, in my life, and in our world where it's very easy for us to get caught in the appearances of everything that's not quite how we want it to be. I don't know about you, but I've certainly already heard some people moving into the place of, oh, how terrible Thanksgiving is going to be because they're not going to be able to do what they're used to doing. Wow. This is a new time, it's a new possibility, and truly, the way that we can give and be thankful and share, there are myriads of options. So let's talk about that for just a minute. It's like, suppose you're going to need to be all by yourself this Thanksgiving. What can you be thankful for? Well, one of the things to even just begin to be thankful for is you have family and friends probably that you'd love to be connected with, so you can be thankful for the love you have. You can be thankful for the friends you have. You can be thankful for the family you have. And you can connect. The other thing you can do with that is to connect with those people and connect with that family, whether it's writing to them, calling them, having a Zoom gathering with them even. Dr. Fauci talks about his grown daughters who like, no way we're coming to see you, you're old. And he was a little kind of funny about, yeah, well, I'm getting old. That's true. And so, but their solution to it was a Zoom Thanksgiving dinner. They're going to set up and have their Thanksgiving dinner at the same time their daughters are, and they're going to have a Zoom gathering for their Thanksgiving dinner. You might not, I might not choose to do something or have that as an option, but think of the people you know and you care and you love about, that you could call, you could write them, you could send them a card, and let them know how thankful and grateful you are to have them in your life. There's always a way to stop and look at accepting the circumstances that we're in. There's a saying comes from the Course in Miracles that says we're caught in a wrong perception if we are wishing for things to be as they are not. And what that is talking about is that what is, if I'm caught in wishing that it's different than it is, I'm making up stories about the past, about how I'd like to be it different, so that I don't have to deal with what is. Where really, what we're called to do is accept what is. Doesn't mean we love it. Doesn't mean it's going to stay here forever. What it means is this is what is. So given what is my calling? What is the high watch? What is Spirit calling me to open my mind and open my heart to, that I can be a part of the blessing of what is and move toward my intentions for where I would like to grow and change. And part of what we find out about where we want to grow and change is when we pay attention to what's not where we would ideally like it to be. So we can set an intention to begin to take the steps to change it. Who knows? Maybe you make plans this year about how you're going to spend Thanksgiving next year, or how you're going to spend Christmas next year. And you're going to all be able to do it, ideally, because you take care of yourselves and I take care of myself this year. It's part of the love we have to take care of each other. And so Scripture tells us, and this is Paul speaking to the Thessalonians, it's 5-18, he says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. In all circumstances, even a pandemic. I thought it'd be kind of fun to just share a story from my own life of very early when I was first married. We had a busy life going on, and I was pregnant with one of my first children, and somehow or other, things did not work out for Thanksgiving like we had thought they were going to be. We hadn't really had a Thanksgiving together, and we were going to go spend Thanksgiving with somebody else, and their plans changed. Somebody got sick, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and it was before we could just run off to the store, like some of the stores are still open now, and pick up Thanksgiving dinner. No, we were there with what did we have in the refrigerator, and there really wasn't anything there that fit in any way with Thanksgiving. And I was fairly upset, pretty young, but about 20, I think, and upset about this is what we were dealing with. And so my husband said, look, I'll take care of it. I'll fix something. And I still look back on it, because what he ended up doing is taking eggs and hard-boiling them and fixing like deviled eggs, only because I liked curry. He put curry powder in it. And so we sat down with these curried eggs that, no, they weren't very tasty. They were, in fact, pretty awful. And there was this moment of me feeling like I ought to say thank you, and they were really good, and he acknowledged they weren't either, and we really ended up having a big laugh about it. And we also ended up being thankful that we were together. And so I really encourage you to consider what you can do to create for yourself and for your family and for your community through the gift of gratitude. Because somehow, and I know not how, but this is what I always hold, Spirit is always working in and through all things for our highest good. Spirit's working in and through all things for your highest good. My friend, Reverend John McLaughlin, bless his heart, is no longer with us. He used to say, even in the direst of circumstances, a few appreciative thoughts will begin to generate hope and courage. Hope and courage. So explore ways that you can move into that consciousness of thanks. Begin this very day. And the truth of the matter is, you can just begin by sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen, and what are you grateful for? What do you have to give thanks for? And so many stories of transformation, my own included, is that when I first started doing gratitudes and lists of things to be thankful for, it was a big challenge. And sometimes the list merely would start with things like, well, I can see, and I have a piece of paper, and I have a pen. I've got 3 things on my list, right? Begin to build your thanks energy, your thanks confidence, and begin to pay attention to moving into that place of action with it. Remember that spiritual principle that says we act on the spiritual truths we know. So open to each day, what are my opportunities to give thanks today? It may be when you get up in the morning and the little birds are out there and you say, thank you, beautiful birds, for being here this morning. Giving thanks, saying thanks to your friends, saying thanks to your neighbor, saying thanks to your family, saying thanks and thanks and thanks, that whatever is happening, whatever is going on, where is my place of connecting in with gratitude? And as we do this, what we begin to do is that place of thanks, of true thanks, of gratitude for what is, begins to connect us with the allness of God, begins to connect us with the infinite supply that is always there for us when we're willing to open our minds and our hearts and to see and to claim it with our action of giving thanks. So now so we can work on that one. That's a wonderful one to explore and really act on every day, because it's the practice. What we're doing with that is we're really literally changing our consciousness from being focused on what ego always finds that's missing to what spirit knows is the truth of infinite supply. That we begin to activate that indwelling Christ spirit that knows God is our source and our supply. So the next piece of not only giving thanks is to move to the other spiritual practice of giving. And I want to start with a little story that Victoria Castle shares in her book, The Trance of Scarcity. And I first heard from Wayne Dyer. And it's about a wise woman who finds a precious stone. And the story goes that this wise woman was taking a journey up and over through a mountain to get to the other side. And on her journey, she's up there and she gets thirsty and she hears a little stream. And she goes and finds this beautiful stream of water and bends down to get herself some water. And as she's drinking her water, she looks down and she spots this beautiful little stone. And she reaches on down through the water and brings it up, and oh my, she realizes this is like a precious gem. This is amazing. Wow. And so she takes the precious stone and she puts it in her little knapsack. And she continues on with her hiking along up into the mountains, and later on into the day, she finds a place to rest, and in the morning she's up and about and heading on her journey, and this fellow comes from the other direction. And he's obviously pretty he must have been traveling a long while, because she could tell he was sort of just really distressed a little bit, and she speaks to him and says hello, and it turns out the man's hungry and thirsty, and so she's well, here, let me share what I have. And she opens up her knapsack and she pulls out her bread and she shares her food with him. Well, while she has her knapsack open, this man spots the precious stone in there. And he says, well, he is thankful for the food he has, but he says, can you just give me that stone that you have in your knapsack? And the woman reaches on down and just hands it to him. Sure, have the stone. And wow, he's excited. He takes it and he leaves. And he's traveling along and he's going through all these things. Oh my gosh, you gave me this precious stone. This is so precious. I'll be able to do all of these things. I can sell this and I will have enough to take care of myself for the rest of my life. And he's walking along with the precious stone, and the more he walks with the precious stone, the more he begins to think about things and think about things. And finally, it's like it dawns on him that he needs to go back and give the stone back to the woman. And so he heads back on up, and he hurries on up the trail, and finally, sure enough, he finds her. And there she is. And he says, old woman. He said, I'm so glad I found you. He said, I must give you this stone back. And she's like, what? What's that all about? And he said, I know that this is a very precious stone, but there is something even more precious I want to know from you. And he says, what I want from you is I want to know what it was within you that allowed you to give me the stone like that with such ease. So what was that? What was that allowed the woman to give that stone with such ease? One of the things somehow that certainly comes up for me, and you may be thinking about it yourself, is that somehow she had to realize and know that God is her source. God's her source. That she is a part of a universe that is going to supply whatever she needs. And she must have also realized somehow that we're all connected. We're all a part of that whole. That the man that came and had the need for food also in some way had that need for the stone. And so he asked, and she was able to just give it to him with ease. There's so many spiritual teachings that fit into that. Certainly, Jesus tells us, ask and you shall receive. And in that beautiful Beatitudes, he ends up saying in the midst of that, in Luke 6:37, by the way, he says, give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put back in your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure which you get back. And over, there is this awareness there that as we work with your consciousness, because that's what Jesus was talking to people about. He was talking about changing your consciousness. That when you change your consciousness from lack to the infinite gift of supply that God is, your life will change. And as we teach in Unity, thoughts held in mind do produce after their own kind. When I begin to focus on that God is the infinite source of my supply, then I don't need to hoard. I don't need to hold on to everything. I can open myself up. I can open my heart up. I need to open my heart up to know that there are so many things that I can give. And when we make a daily practice of giving, that is an amazing process. And it doesn't have, I'm not just talking about monetary giving. Money is a gift exchange that we all have an agreement about, but there are so many ways to give. This last week, had just a little bitty one that gave me such pleasure to be able to give it. And it was simply that I was out walking with my dog, and it was very cold, and I came on my way back, and there was my neighbor, and she was out cleaning her car in the really cold weather there, and she looked up, and we had our little masks on, or our little conversation, and she was freezing cold. And I looked at her, and I saw she did not have a hat on her head. Well, having been involved in mountaineers years ago and learned that we lose 50% of our body heat out of the top of our heads, I simply told her that, and I said, what you really need, Nora, is to get yourself a wool, not a cotton or baseball hat or anything, go get yourself a wool hat, and you will be so much warmer. And she dropped what she had and went on in the house, and I went and got my mail, and I'm coming back. There she is with her wool hat on, waving, saying thank you. And I was so blessed to have been able to give her that little bit of wisdom that changed her life. I didn't even have to give her a wool hat. She didn't need me to give her a wool hat. She just needed to have the information that she needed that. So there's all kinds of ways to give. Now, I do want to talk about one thing, and that is, very quickly, is in her book, by the way, if you're interested in exploring prosperity, Victoria Castle, who is a Unity licensed teacher, and the first place I ever heard her speak was actually here at Unity in Bellingham. Her book, The Trance of Scarcity, is a great one to help explore those things. And she has a great flow of abundance that she works through. And two of the things on there have to do with gratitude and thanks and giving, both on her flow of cycles. So it might be something you want to explore. But she gives a little bit of advice in there. And I want us to all pay attention to that. She says, stay away from the slippery slope, she calls it, of obligatory giving, where you feel obligated, like you have to give to someone or something, that it's somehow required of you. No, she says, what we want And what you want to work on in terms of your spiritual practice is inspired giving. Because that's what comes from the heart. That's what comes from that indwelling Christ Spirit. Where do I feel inspired to give? And what are the ways I can give? So this is another gift that you can give yourself and others this Thanksgiving time and into Christmas. Where am I inspired to give, and how am I inspired to give? And to give yourself the daily practice of finding ways to give, finding ways to be a part of the wholeness of God coming into expression by giving and receiving, which allows us all to be coming from an elevated consciousness. So thank you. Thank you for joining me today. I am grateful, and I am so blessed to be able to give this time and share this message with you. Take care, have a blessed Thanksgiving, and be sure to fill it with thanks and giving. God bless.
Thank you, Sandra, for being with us today. We've now reached the part of our service where we are invited to practice the abundance that we are. There are 2 ways to share your abundance with us, and you will find that information on your screen at the end of the service. We are always grateful for your generosity, and as you consider your gift today, affirm, I give freely and joyfully, for God is my source, and I have abundance in all areas of my life. And let's repeat that again. I give freely and joyfully, for God is my source, and I have abundance in all areas of my life. Let's say together our offertory blessing. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And we welcome our musical guest, Quiet Fire.
You can play the game, you can act out the part, though you know it wasn't written for you. Tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, afraid of playing the fool? One thing can lead to another, it doesn't take any sacrifice. Father or mother, sister or brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice, just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is why I didn't know just what you're gonna do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself alone. Once you tell somebody the way that you feel it beginning to ease. I guess it's true what they say about the squeaky wheel, always getting the grease. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will.
are gonna work out fine if you only will. If you only will, shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. They say in every life, they say the rain must fall. Just like the pouring rain, let it rain. Love is sunshine, let it rain. Love is sunshine, let it rain. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Thank you, Quiet Fire. That was beautiful. Now, as we come to the end of our service, let's say our prayer of protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you again for being with us today, and have a blessed week ahead.